the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Thank you for joining us. Today is, as you know, January 20th, 2017, 8 o'clock in the morning here on the West Coast. We have with us a friend of our show. I'm delighted he's become a friend of our show, Mr. Karl Grossman. Karl, are you with us? Hello, Karl? Okay, so you know what this means? I get to call him right back. We've sort of been through this game before, haven't we, folks? Seems like we're on the phone. No matter what we do when we call into the radio show, we cannot get through to our guests, and that is just the way it is. So that's okay. Maybe this is part of what we have to deal with in the new world of the Trump nation. They're letting us know they're watching us, man, because they can easily turn it off and turn it on. I've talked to Skype. We've had the computer guy figure it out, and we just cannot get through to this. Well, that's interesting. I can't get through to Karl's phone number. Skype won't let me call him. Let me see if I can give him a call. That's bizarre. It's not dialing. I have his phone number plugged in, and there's no allowable to button in. Let me see. Let me keep going. Perseverance brings success. And that is not working either. I cannot get through. I swear, I'm putting in all of his numbers. And I talked to him right before the show. I said, look, if we can't get through, I will call you right back. So I'm putting the numbers in. And guess what? As soon as I put in his last number, the number goes away and I can't dial his number. I am not kidding you. This is just amazing. Welcome to the Trump nation, huh? I don't know who this is at the NSA who thinks that they're going to keep us from talking about the nuclear. This is just astounding. Let me see if I can text Karl and see if he can, I'm going to try to reach him, you guys. This is a bit awkward, but you know what? Perseverance brings success, and I do have his number on my cell phone, so I'm going to call him and give him my phone number on the Skype in case he can call in, which I should have done, and I didn't think that I've been able to dial everybody here. So let me call him right back and see what this says. So I'm going to put him on speakerphone and call him. I'm going to hold him up. Oh man, he's on hold. I wonder if he can hang up. So I'm going to call his other number and see if we can get him to call. Hold on, you guys. I'm just...
Person you call, mailbox, text.
Oh, dear me. I think Karl is on the phone, is on hold. I keep getting a busy number on his line. Let me give him a call. See? busy, which means he's on the phone. Maybe he can get a text. And I'll just text him, please hang up. Maybe he's just waiting. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to text him my phone number. Uh-oh. Hold on. Let's see. Let me call his other number and see. And I'm going to text him. I'm going to keep going. I know this is awkward, guys, but I really do want to talk to Karl Grossman, because I think that the reason I can't get through is that he's not hung up. So hold on. We're going to call again. I think I have to move on because we are live on the air. He's hanging up. He's not hanging up. So I wish he would hang up. Karl, if you're listening in any way, I'm going to put a message out on the Facebook. How about that? That might help him. Maybe he's available to see the Facebook. I mean, that might work. Now we're 6 minutes in. So this is the story we were going to talk about. Nuclear stockpile warned. Senator warns Trump nuclear stockpile is about to go leaderless. Trump is a very big threat to us here in the United States right now in regards to nuclear. He is planning on ramping it up. So I keep getting a busy signal. So let me try to reach him again. Let me see. I'm going to call him on my cell phone, folks, because I can't see what he's doing. I can't hear if he's busy through the Skype, if I'm calling him through Skype. Yeah. I'm going to call his other number and see if we can get through there. And hopefully his wife will answer the phone. That would be nice if she really did. Neither line is going to get through. Well, this is a complete bummer. I cannot get through to Karl Grossman. He was on the telephone, and I asked him to please hang tight. I warned him. But this is exactly what happened. So his line is busy, and I guess he's seeing my line is busy. That is no bueno, man. Seriously. Well, I know he does have caller ID because when I called him, he saw my New York number. And so I'm still going to send it to him and see if he can get this. Let me see if he can get my number. So, Karl, if you happen to be listening at any time and you want to call in, please give us a call because we would love to chat with you. 106. So the number is 718-717-8106. If anybody out there listening is a friend of Karl's, just tell them that it sounds like the phone is busy. We were on the phone as soon as the radio got started, and then it dropped. And I am unable to get through to him because it sounds like his phone is busy, which I doubt it is. But I guess that's what we're going to have to deal with. Let me dial his number one more time. Perseverance does bring success. So I'm going to try it again, folks. No, I cannot get through. It doesn't even show me his phone number. It doesn't even give me a busy signal on the Skype. The number just goes light. I'm not able to dial his phone number whatsoever at all. So if anybody is hearing this and wants to give Karl my number, please do. We'd love to speak to him and tell him that we get a busy signal. Hold on, folks. I'm typing him a little note. On the air, I'm telling him I can't dial his number on the air. So on the Facebook, I sent him this message. So good thing I'm quick at thinking on my feet because I know what he wanted to talk about, and I am going to talk about what Karl wanted to talk about. We'll see if we can get him on the air very shortly. I guess we're going to have to pre-record, right, folks? I mean, that is really where we're getting with talking about nuclear. Is this what the Trump nation is going to be about? Wow. Oh, yay. I think he just hung up. I heard the number go different. So let me do this again. Let me dial it. Okay. Maybe he could hear us and we couldn't hear him. Maybe that was the deal. I'm going to add him to the group call. Let's see. Let's hope we get Karl. Yay.
Hello.
Karl,
Hello.
yay. Perseverance brings success. Hi, can you hear
Great.
us?
Yes, I'm fine.
10 minutes. Thank you, listeners, for hanging with us. My listeners have been listening to me going, hey, what happened to Karl? I guess this is the Trump nation. My conspiratorial mind is like, really? This is the day? I mean, I don't find it. Did you hear us, Karl?
Yeah, no, I didn't at all. No, thankfully, there's no plutonium or nuclear involved in phone communications, but it just shows you how things break down. I mean, you said hang on. I did. I waited about 4 or 5 minutes. Then I tried to shut off. I tried to shut off the phone, figuring so you could call again, and it wouldn't shut, which is kind of like a telephonic meltdown.
Well, it's not a meltdown. You know what, Karl? I actually have to stop you. This is my argument with the anti-nuclear movement, the establishment. You guys are so sweet and so naive. It's not a meltdown. It's the NSA poking its fingers in our life because we're talking about shutting down nuclear. Well, and it is as easy as them watching our show, me saying,
I don't know.
Hey, he's going to be on. And then they punch a button last night that says it interrupts our phone calls. And you know what happens is they're dumb because I'm persistent. I'm not going to give up. Their paradigm is not mine. They cannot win. Surveillance states fail. Well, and we're talking about a surveillance state this morning.
What I was actually referring to was, for example, when the Fukushima disaster began over 5 years ago, these meltdowns, there was no way to stop them. In fact, it's continuing today. And so that's what I was referring to, that here I was hanging on to the phone, trying to hang up, so you could call me back, and you couldn't hang up.
Just like, exactly. And it was the same thing. I couldn't get through to you. I couldn't redial your number because it wouldn't let you hang up.
Right, of
course.
You were
did you have to turn your phone off and restart it? Is that how it works?
I tried it about 15 times, but it just kind of didn't work. But again, this is a metaphor regards to technology. There's always breakdowns in technology. I mean, I just went to my Toyota dealer yesterday, and I love my Toyota Prius. It's the best car I've ever had, I must note. But there's little problems here and there. For example, there's this dopey switch which comes on when it's not really supposed to come on in terms of tire pressure. And it's winter here. I'm not in Florida.
Yeah.
And so so technology breaks down. And when we're talking about nuclear power and nuclear technology, it has to be 100% fail-safe, and it's not. In fact, it's not even
fail. It's 100% fail.
Failed. I mean, it's not. It's an enormous disaster. It doesn't.
Karl, don't you think it's a failed experiment? And it's just part of. Did you see that quick clip with Alibaba, the rich Chinese mogul? He said, "Look, we're not stealing your jobs. You guys are spending too much money on war. Your whole war machine is what's killing your economy." And this nuclear is part of the war machine, which is why Trump is really going to be pro-nuke. People think that he's not pro-nuke, but he is very pro-nuke.
Enormously so. I mean, here's a quote right here from Trump. I have it right on my little desktop right here. Donald Trump, who will become the 45th president of the United States on this very dark day, I might say it's happening, supported bringing back coal plants to revitalize jobs for the Rust Belt. But what may be less well known is that he is also strongly in favor of expanding the footprint of the nation's, this is his largest single source of carbon-free energy, baloney, nuclear power. After the Fukushima disaster in Japan in 2011, Trump stated when queried, "I'm in favor of nuclear energy, very strongly in favor of nuclear energy. If a plane goes down, people keep flying. If you get into an auto crash, people keep driving." He doesn't seem to understand that we're talking here about a technology which is inherently lethal. It isn't a matter of getting back behind the wheel. It's a matter of moving to a safe, clean, green technology, an energy technology we can live with, like wind and solar and other safe green energy technologies. But the problem here is that, on so many issues, I mean, Trump is completely out of it. It's just beyond belief. And we can go through the list. But in terms of nuclear, I mean, I have a pile of stuff here. The Daily Caller News Foundation. This is a right-wing website. Headline: America's nuclear industry expects a boom under Trump.
They will, yes.
And as to those quotes that I just read about Trump and nuclear, if anybody wants to Google and find out where they came from, it's actually a website which helps people in terms of stock called The Motley Fool, FOOL, and the headline is "What a Trump Presidency Means for Nuclear Stocks." I mean, I just cite two sources here, but you can go on and on. For example, here's a piece in front of me in terms of Trump and nuclear power, which shows, he's so tight with these insiders, these special interests. And this is from Power Grid International's Electric Light and Power website. NEI, which is the Nuclear Energy Institute, asks incoming Trump administration to promote nuclear power. And if you go, you can Google it. That's how I got it.
I saw that on Twitter. I got into a back and forth on Twitter with people on that. I ended up saying, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the line that this article says the NEI is using is that Trump should have the federal government somehow revive nuclear power by putting it under the category of zero carbon energy.
Exactly.
NEI states, it goes on about how the government
clean
under
and green, and it's pretty cheap. It's one of the cheapest things that we have, and it's very clean.
Well, that is ridiculous, because at this point, wind and solar are, it's beyond. That's why these plants have been closing, including this is all new since we last spoke, the agreement to close the Indian Point nuclear plants, which are just 26 miles north of New York City, 30 miles from Times Square, because competitive energy is here. And in terms of nuclear being carbon-free, these nuclear Pinocchios, to make that claim, the nuclear cycle is carbon-intensive. We're talking about mining and milling and enrichment and so forth. It's a heavy contributor of emissions of greenhouse gases. Solar and wind aren't, but the nuclear cycle is, and for them to claim, the nuclear industry, that it's carbon-free. Now, of course, Trump himself doesn't believe in global warming. He doesn't believe in climate change. He says it's all a Chinese hoax. So it'll be interesting to see as the NEI attempts, and probably succeeds, in manipulating this person, this Donald, into having the federal government do whatever it can to resuscitate nuclear power, whether he would do it on the grounds that nuclear power doesn't do what Trump says doesn't exist. On the other hand, this man is so down on wind farms he doesn't like. He thinks solar is very expensive, which is
Look, he's such a greedy. This is the bottom line. He's not thinking about anything about what helps our environment. He wants to make the most money, and they're filling his pockets. Look what he's going to get when he makes this Russian deal. Look, when he lifts the sanctions, the day he lifts the sanctions on the Russian deal, guarantee somebody in his family is making a boatload of money somewhere along the line. Maybe down 15 years down the road, a contract will be fulfilled. But he's making a boatload of money, guarantee it. This is not an accident. It is
I think with
corruption. Karl, I have this really. I want to ask you this. Don't you think it's an interesting comparison how we are ignoring the threat, and especially on this nuclear issue. But most people aren't even paying attention to the nuclear issue. I'm even talking about the issues that they are looking at, the inequality, the racism that's increasing, the KKK administration, the lack of qualified appointees. You know what I mean? This whole thing that it's like the idiocracy, the dumb people get to run the show. But everybody's sort of ignoring it, going, oh, yeah, well, that's but it's the same attitude that we have, that people have when you talk to them about Fukushima, or the threat that the nuclear leaks are like their eyes it's like when you mentioned, the reason that Indian Point got closed down is because there's an ongoing leak. And in the last month, right up there near Turkey Point, 9 whales were beached up right up the road from there. You know what I mean? It was, and there's not one word about it being caused by nuclear, complete silence. Much in the same way that we're giving this whole, the people that Trump is bringing in, they're telling us they are going to destroy, rape, and pillage our government. Period.
Yes, on every issue, this country is, as of today, essentially like right now as we speak, this guy is just minutes away from being sworn in to this powerful position, and he has geared. You just look at his gang.
Our nuclear arsenal is being left unattended. Defense News says Heinrich, who is a U.S. Senator from New Mexico who knows about nuclear, a member of the Senate Armed Services Strategic Forces Subcommittee, sent President Donald-elect Trump a letter Tuesday urging him to keep senior officials in sensitive national security posts, including National Nuclear Security Administration. Because as of Friday, they're all fired. They've been told to leave when he gets appointed. And he's getting appointed on Friday. We don't know who's going to stay on Monday. Out of the six out of 58 people, appointed officials, we need them. They're the administrators. They're the people who know the inside deals.
He's a fellow who does not take nuclear weaponry or nuclear war seriously. It's been reported that at a briefing several months ago, Trump said, well, we have nuclear weapons, why don't we use them? He just didn't understand why the reluctance and so forth to use nuclear weaponry. He doesn't have the slightest, apparently, understanding of, and he's about my age. And I lived through duck and cover. In fact, I grew up not far from where Donald Trump, he was from Jamaica Estates. I'm from 5 miles away, St. Albans in Queens. And, I was of the time, and he was of the time, of having to be regularly at school, given exercises of going under the desk, duck and cover, going into the hallways, and so forth. Maybe he missed all that. This is a guy oblivious to the horrors of not just nuclear power, but the other side of the nuclear coin, which is nuclear weaponry. We are going into such a dark tunnel, and it's unpredictable. One just does not know what could occur. If this guy is so thin-skinned, he will fire off a tweet denigrating Meryl Streep in the middle of the night, and then arrange for an interview. It had to have been in the early morning with the New York Times to continue to carry on about Meryl Streep. If he's so thin-skinned and nutso in that way, imagine he's there with the potential of pressing in effect, the nuclear button. And there's been pieces written, some very important pieces written in the last several months because of Trump's temperament. I mean, this has been was raised by Hillary Clinton, and what it means in terms of Trump and the nuclear button, and the pieces too. The better pieces explore how it works in terms of who has the authority to. Here's a piece, an excellent piece. I'd suggest listeners go to by Alex Wellerstein. He's a historian of nuclear weapons at Stevens Institute of Technology. He runs a website, Restricted Data, the Nuclear Secrecy blog. And the headline of this piece is, "No one can stop President Trump from using nuclear weapons. That's by design." And the subhead is, "The whole system is set up so the president, and only the president, can decide when to launch." I mean, and we have this guy. I mean, this scenario that we're getting into, it's a very, very close cousin to Dr. Strangelove. I mean, you don't have exactly a Dr. Strangelove, but you have a similar nut who is going to, right now, he's going to become the president of the United States. And
do you think they have the possibility? See, it's been reported that Mike Pence is going to be given the authority. He's going to make the major decisions domestically and internationally, meaning we have a Cheney-Bush kind of a presidency where the vice president is doing all the work, right? So we have what I call the American Taliban running the show. But do you think that they will, can they restrict him from getting the button? Like, if he's deferring his responsibility to Mike Pence, I'm thinking that maybe they won't even give him that information. They'll just give it to Mike Pence. I guess really, that's the inner workings of the White House.
I mean, you're talking about a person who is a highly egocentric, full of himself, full of deception. And, let me quote Hillary Clinton. "A man you can bait with a tweet is not a man we can trust with nuclear weapons." In fact, this is from the Wellerstein piece that goes on, "When Trump takes office, he will have sole authority over more than 7,000 warheads. There is no fail-safe. The whole point of U.S. nuclear weapons control is to make sure the president, and only the president, can use them if and whenever he decides to do so." As to his bringing in Pence as a new Cheney, I just don't know. This guy is such. I mean, that's why Trump is all over. Trump Plaza, Trump Casino, Trump helicopter, Trump on the airplane. In fact, a number of years ago, he took over the shuttle service between New York and Washington. And there, and that didn't work out. As so many of the Trump schemes did, whether it's Trump University or whatever, didn't work out. But there at LaGuardia Airport were one plane after another with Trump on it. So in terms of partnering or working with Pence, not that he might be more trustworthy. I mean, he mentally, almost anybody would be more trustworthy than Trump. I just don't know. The guy has an ego that is unbelievable. And again, when we get to nuclear weapons, when we get to other issues of life and death, nuclear we're talking about, and we can jump to climate change, which is I mean, that Al Gore just has a follow-up documentary, just premiered at Sundance Festival, to his wonderful and such an important documentary, The Inconvenient Truth, about the lethal dangers. I mean, and you don't have to consider, that many years down the road, if global warming, if climate change continues at this rate, it's going to have an impact on this planet. It already has meteorologically with these hurricanes, with these bizarre weather patterns, with places on the planet.
Imagine, Karl, not just it's not the global climate change, it's the underlying core issue of pollution. Nuclear pollution and chemical pollution is destroying our environment. That's what's undermining the climate change, is because it's killing the molecular structure, the micro, like the little microbes, all the things, all the little small tiny organisms that make the earth thrive, that speak to the dirt, that speak to the water. These little tiny organisms are being affected and killed by nuclear pollution and chemical pollution.
I mean, they have thrown a monkey wrench, nuclear. Rachel Carson, incidentally. People generally associate Rachel Carson and Silent Spring with pesticides, and it should be. But Rachel Carson was a strong foe and critic, and she writes about it in Silent Spring, of nuclear power. In fact, she stresses in Silent Spring the synergy, how you put the two together and things get even worse. And the bottom line here is the cancer is absolutely epidemic, as any listener knows. I mean, who listening to our conversation doesn't know someone who is dying or has just died of cancer? I did an analysis in one of my books, this is a number of years ago, of why the cancer epidemic, and I went to a bunch of government reports, presidential reports done. It was during the Jimmy Carter time in the late 70s, and there was report after report. The book, incidentally, if anybody would like to pick up a copy of it, The Poison Conspiracy. It wasn't just an aside here.
I have it on my desk here, actually.
Well, it's a book about who Reagan appointed to. In fact, the back cover has one of the pages in the book. His new head of the EPA, his new head of Rita Laval of Superfund, came from Aerojet General, one of the biggest polluters around. I mean, in fact, now Trump is he's putting his poisoners big time into government. The poison conspiracy continues, resumes. And it turns back to cancer. I do a whole chapter, Admitted Consequences of Cancer, and I cite government report after government report. A number of presidential task forces was set up on cancer, and they point out that cancer was a minor disease in the United States. It was the number 8 cause of death in 1900, and now it's cancer and heart disease 1 and 2. And it's just widespread. And incidentally, in terms of what a president can do, when Reagan got in, according to a former public relations guy and I've written about this, for EPA, the White House issued orders that no longer were the words cancer-causing to be used in front of the word chemical. I mean, there was then, and expect now, an attempt to whitewash, and again, we're talking here about life and death. This is people being impacted lethally by these sorts of things. That's why it's so important now, not tomorrow, even now, the day of the inauguration, for people to get ready to fight back. We must fight back. This can't be something that a presidency that we would normalize, that we consider. We had a Reagan, we had a Nixon, and now we have Trump. This is this is almost hard to say, considering Reagan and Nixon. The Trump, the way it's shaping up with his appointees, with what he's been saying, with the man himself, could be the absolute worst presidency, if we live through it, in the history of the United States, and it's so important that people join together as they are with this. A demonstration down in D.C. today. There was one last night in New York in front of Trump Tower. We join together and fight back, resist, fight back, and I mean there's a number of ways.
I'm going to the women's protest on Saturday. There's, they're all over, and I encourage men to join us because this is not just about women. This is about standing up and saying, you know what, this is not 1932. I mean, I'm advocating that if they do start a Muslim registry, that we all register as Muslims. If we can't stop them from doing it, we can break the system.
Lonnie, it's on every issue, on women's right to choose. Bill Baird, who is from where I'm from, Long Island, and I've known Bill for many, many years. And he was key to the Roe versus Wade decision. Long a crusader for women's right to choose. And I actually, I'm going to go way back with Bill. And it all started with him. He was a salesperson for a pharmaceutical company, and he was in. I mean, he tells the story in a hospital in New York in Harlem, and a woman comes in with this is horrible to hear, with a coat hanger sticking out of her vagina. She had tried to self-abort, and there in front of Bill, this woman dies, and this motivated Bill Baird to be a champion for legalized abortion, and he was jailed, and he was harassed, and so forth. But Roe versus Wade finally came out of the crusade of many people, Bill and so many, a neighbor of mine here in Sag Harbor, Betty Friedan, and other, there's so many, the list is long, who fought and devoted their lives to the women's right to choose. In any case, Bill puts out a press release this morning, thankfully he's still around, that he fears that the Trump presidency, because he'll pack the Supreme Court, will be the end of Roe versus Wade.
Have to just say no and leave it open. I mean, they had 8 years of obstruction. I think they should just say no to anybody who's going to reverse Roe v. Wade.
Well, there's so many issues here that
I know, Karl. I get you.
that will be affecting us and affecting us very, very deeply. And so it's just critical that, I mean, this is bad news stuff, but it's bad news.
Yeah.
And
we just have to face it as adults, though. And that's why I think, but you know what I say about resistance? Happiness is resistance. They want us to be fearful and anxious and get into anxiety and push back. No, I advocate for complete passive resistance. Happiness is resistance. Be happy, do the right thing, fill your life with the right thing. And you know what? I'm happy to resist. I don't bank at Bank of America, for example. Do you know what I mean? I don't bank at these people. I bank at a community credit union.
Good for you.
These are serious small steps as a small person that we can do. And all of it matters. Every drop in the bucket fills the cup. It is super important actually, Karl, this is why I'm so delighted to have you on the air. It is because of you that I've always believed that in my life. I'm a survivor of severe child abuse. And not just a survivor, I built my own business, you know what I mean? On nothing, not a shoestring, not $1 in a bank loan, you know what I mean? And honestly, when it came to this issue about being involved and outspoken about nuclear, I didn't even know where to start. And you said on the radio, whatever idea you have in your head, do it. Don't keep telling yourself no. We've been trained to tell ourselves we don't matter, but it does matter. And you are 100% correct.
Well, thank you so much. And if I've been an inspiration in any way to you, Len, because you're doing such important work.
Thank you.
It's such important work in this time. I mentioned before we can't normalize Trump, and actually I get that that notion from David Remnick, he's the editor of the New Yorker magazine, and I don't know how he was able to find the time, but of the thousands of essays written about the specter of Trump, this is the morning after the election. He had online this piece. It's called An American Tragedy. David Remnick, and he's a pretty cool. This is not. Nobody can ever accuse him of being some sort of radical and capable journalist. He's covered extensively Russia, which is very important in terms of Putin and all, in terms of the Trump situation. In any case, he stressed in this piece. Again, it's online.
I have it. I just found it. It's very easy. I'll put links. Right. All these things we've talked about, I'll put links. I'll ask our producer to put these links in.
And he stresses we can't normalize the situation. Again, this is the morning after the election, and he goes on about the terrible things that can be expected to happen. And so we have to, actually it's Harvey Wasserman, my buddy Harvey Wasserman, who has this line that the myth that you can't fight City Hall is a myth invented by City Hall. You can,
right, exactly.
You can fight City Hall to win, and win. And importantly, I think what's going to need happen is that on state and local levels, we're going to have to deal with this this federal government and the gang of Trump's hands, and that also can be done. For example, the whole issue of we were speaking before about Indian Point. In large part, it's because Entergy couldn't compete with these nuclear plants with competitive energy technologies, and right up there is solar and wind, and there's this big effort to do all kind of offshore wind here in the New York area, which will replace the electricity been generated at the Indian Point. So the claim that we need the Indian Point electricity is baloney. There's plans, and Europe has been doing this now for years. Major offshore wind farms off Jersey, south of New York City, here off Long Island. In fact, the first offshore wind farm in the United States began operations just last month in December. A small number, but these other wind farms are going to have many turbines. A small number off east of Long Island, off Block Island, 5 turbines initially, but the same company, Deepwater Wind, and also it's figured out a way to have the turbines out of sight, so people can't be concerned about the aesthetic impacts. Deepwater, it's what I call Deepwater Wind, and so forth. It's just in the Long Island newspaper, Newsday today, is a story about the Long Island Power Authority ready to give the go-ahead for 15 Deepwater Wind turbines south of Long Island, and Deepwater Wind is talking in terms of hundreds of them. So that's a key reason for Indian. But the other reason, and it's so important in terms of strategy here, the use of local and state government. What the New York State government did in going against Indian Point was doing something that wasn't preempted by the feds. Way back in the 50s, when the nuclear push began, the nuclear promoters, working with very pliant government officials, both in Congress and various administrations, made sure that most of what nuclear plants involve would be preempted. The feds would have the authority over issues of radioactivity and so forth and so on. What the state of New York did, what the wonderful environmental group Riverkeeper did, and other safe energy environmental groups, was zero in on what's called a Speedies permit. A Speedies permit is a state permit allowing discharge. And the way these 2 Indian Point plants have been operating is there's no towers there. There's no. It's just once through cooling. So they suck in 1 million gallons a minute of water from the Hudson River, and a little irradiated, send that water out, killing zillions of fish in the process. I mean, every day those Indian Point plants have been discharging 2.5 billion gallons of water into this this lovely river. And so what the state did is said, we're going to deny you a speedies permit. And that was too much for Entergy. It would have had to, it figured it'd have to build these cooling towers, and that'd be too expensive. So that was another reason why Entergy gave up years ago, and we've talked about this on the show here on Long Island. The way anti-nuclear safe energy folks with supportive government officials worked was to use the power of eminent domain, which a state has. Like when it wants to widen a road, it can, if somebody wants to refuse to sell the property a few feet that the government needs to widen that road, well, the government has the power, state government and local governments of eminent domain. They could move in and say, it's ours. And what occurred on Long Island in the end was that the Long Island Power Act was passed in 1985, which essentially states that under the power of eminent domain, we, the state, will eliminate you, the utility, it was called the Long Island Lighting Company, if you persist in LILCO, Long Island Lighting Company, wanted to build 7 to 11 nuclear plants on Long Island. And the feds were, I mean, actually the federal government gave permission for the first nuclear power plant construction, Shoreham. After construction began, it was all kangaroo court. It was outrageous, and they were ready to allow LILCO to go on and build 2 more nuclear. That was the plan. It's Shoreham and 4 nuclear plants at Jamesport and so forth. But using the state power of eminent domain, New York State and safe energy advocates, environmentalists here on Long Island were able to get around the federal preemption, and the Long Island Lighting Company gave up too and turned over Shoreham to the state for $1. It was its nuclear innards were removed. It's sitting there, a hulk of concrete, and none of the other nuclear plants were built. And also let me note that grassroots action ended up, there was 2 reactors at Brookhaven National Laboratory, which is one of these national nuclear laboratories, Oak Ridge, Los Alamos. There's a string of them originally out of the Manhattan Project. Brookhaven Lab was set up specifically by the Atomic Energy Commission in 1947 to develop civilian uses of nuclear technology and also to atomic research, and it was intimately tied with the utility. In fact, the utility's chairman, chief executive officer, and president in its last 15 years was William Catacasinos, former assistant director of Brookhaven National Laboratory. But again, because he saw what the state was going to do, the state was going to eliminate LILCO, and so he gave up with its nuclear scheme. As to the Brookhaven lab situation, here you had 2 reactors spewing tritium, radioactive hydrogen, into the water table of Long Island for decades. A high flux beam reactor, one was called. You can see it from the Long Island Expressway to this day, though it's not in operation anymore, in a smaller reactor. And because of grassroots action, in fact, Christy Brinkley was a very important factor here. Let me add, and others from the grassroots right up to Christy Brinkley, a celebrity. The result was those 2 reactors at Brookhaven National Laboratory contaminating we have a sole source aquifer on Long Island. This is the only potable source of water, the water underneath us, contaminating that sole source aquifer and causing, in fact, there's been books written on the cancer, very important book about the community of Shirley, just to the south of Brookhaven Lab, and widespread cancer there, caused by the book charges. Kelly McMasters wrote the book, Brookhaven National Laboratory. And in any case, bottom line, Long Island, because of local action, grassroots action, state action, county action, county of Suffolk County, which is half the eastern half of Long Island, is nuclear free. There's no nuclear reactors. There's no nuclear power plants. And might I say, you go to the West Coast and you see what's happening in the state of California. I am very encouraged. Essentially, what the governor and others in California are doing is creating an alternative political universe to Trump and his gang, and we all have to do that.
Exactly. I think the statement that it's really time to get actively engaged. Don't shrink away, because when we do, then they will actually, then they can easily get over with whatever it is they want to get over. And this is really the issue. Like, it's not just Trump. It's also Mike Pence is going to be making a lot of decisions.
Oh,
you know, one of the things this gentleman in this New Yorker, what's his name? I went to the link, and we're going to add
David Remnick. David Remnick is the editor.
There is a sentence that he said in here as I was reading through it. I mean, thank you for bringing it to our attention. It says there's no reason to believe that Trump and his band of associates, Chris Christie, Rudy Giuliani, Mike Pence, and yes, Paul Ryan, are in any mood to govern as Republicans within the traditional boundaries of decency. Trump was not elected on a platform of decency, fairness, moderation, compromise, and rule of law. He was elected in the main on a platform of resentment. Fascism is not our future. It cannot be. We cannot allow it to be so. But this is surely the way fascism begins. So it is very important for all of us to really be diligent and be kind. Like, I think we need the love revolution. I've been saying this on my YouTube channel. We have to go back to the love revolution. Love, I believe, is really the primary energy on planet Earth. And I think that's what they came in the 60s and smashed it down when they saw the power of love. When the love revolution was really beginning to open hearts, open minds, people began to go, wow, we don't have to have this paradigm anymore. The apple cart was being very upset by the bankers, and they came in and smashed it. And I think the lesson is that it is imperative that we regain it and refuse to let it go. Like, we, instead of being angry and bitter about Trump, we need to just forgive them, understand, because guess what? Their children are going to die of nuclear pollution also. Their children are going to die of chemical. I mean, Ivanka Trump has 3 beautiful children. She's living in New York City, feeding them tritium. Do you think any of those kids are, they might have the best water filters in the world, but you don't filter out tritium.
You can't.
I'm sorry.
It's H3O instead of H2O. It's H3O. And there's no way to filter it out. In fact, what they've been doing at Brookhaven Lab for years after it hit the fan in terms of what they've been discharging from those reactors through the years is a pumping system where they pump from the water table directly under Brookhaven Lab a little bit to the southern portion, a little bit to the northern portion to kind of keep things circulating. But, I mean, tritium's around and around and around, and that scheme has its very, very, strict limits in terms of physics, atomic physics. No, it's we can't normalize it. We can't accept it. And we have to function at the Shoreham fight I know really well, the Long Island anti-nuclear fight, and it was a big tent approach, all kind of people believing in all kind of strategies, whether that be the strategy of civil disobedience and protest, or the strategy of lobbying to change the political complexion of various government bodies and get those anti-nukers off those bodies. People, they all came together and did what could be done to stop what Long Island was going to be turned into a U.S. East Coast version of Fukushima, with a cluster of nuclear plants, 7 to 11. What you had at Fukushima was 6. It's Fukushima Daiichi. Just a few miles down from Fukushima Daiichi is Fukushima Daini. And it would be a comparable situation here. But again, it was stopped, and we're going to have to kind of gear ourselves up and function in all kinds of ways. Politically, there's a congressional election in 2 years. And, I mean, I know how congressional districts are gerrymandered and how difficult it is, the way they've all been twisted around. But I think after what Trump and his gang, because not just Trump now, it's some of the creepiest people with all kind of vested interests and all kind of, I mean, it's a whole new, as I say, I titled that book Poison Conspiracy. It's a new poison conspiracy. Once people, including his big supporters who thought that he could do this or that for them, realized that this is just a con man. I mean, that's what Trump was always considered. Again, I'm calling you from Long Island, and I'm a New Yorker, and Donald Trump was always regarded here for years as just this egocentric con man. When people find out what this con man is not delivering, I believe that despite the gerrymandering and despite whatever, they're going to say, throw the bum out. And there'll be an opportunity in a couple of years, not necessarily to throw him out, though impeachment can always be a possibility, considering what Trump has been plans to be up to. But to get a new Congress, which will say no, 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 and move the country in another direction, and hopefully in 4 years, if it takes 4 years, this Trump nightmare will be over.
Well, let's hope that we can actually retain our government. You know, I want to mention this article that you wrote very recently in Common Dreams, Karl. It is excellent. I'm going to also, I've asked Jules to put it in. Why this nuclear engineer says every nuke plant in the U.S. should be shut down yesterday. And what we've been talking about even highlights exactly. Well, you wrote a sentence in here that talks about how they're basically ignoring the harm that nuclear is causing. And this is precisely what Trump is doing. He ignores all the harm that he has done to everybody in his life. Everyone that he has harmed along. If he wanted to help the little people in his life, he could have not filed bankruptcy so many times. You know what I mean? And that's just the bankruptcies. That's not even talking about the litigation, the constant being in court. And we also have not seen his tax returns. You know, so we're in a serious place. We don't know who he has interests belonging to. That's the thing. I mean, it's pretty evident that he does have foreign interests that are going to coerce our government. And this is why he put dunces in at the top. I mean, did you hear in the hearings that Munchen, the guy who's going to run the Treasury Department, he forgot to put on his disclosure forms his Cayman Island accounts? Oops. They're going to rubber stamp this guy. That piece, incidentally,
is thankfully on Common Dreams. A different headline on Counterpunch, The End of Indian Point and the Myths of Nuclear Power in America. Also on Informable, Informable, a wonderful website. Also on Nation of Change. So just put my name in, Karl Grossman, Indian Point, nuclear power, January 2017. And on any of these terrific op-ed news also was running the piece. And you could see a very strong, because this engineer had stories to tell me about nuclear power, and he worked in the industry for 30 years at several nuclear plants and General Electric.
We're over, man. I totally forgot and didn't watch the time. Put your courage feet on, you guys. Thanks for joining us, Karl.
A pleasure always, Lonnie.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Ozzy State